I always get excited for new water brushes. Hi everybody, today I am taking a look at the Prima Marketing Ink watercolor brush pens, and as well as their Prima Traveler's Journal watercolor paper notebook. My focus is going to mostly be on the water brushes, but I'll give you my thoughts on the little journal as well. I picked both of these up in Palm Springs at the Planners Rock event, and I am working my way through slowly all of the shit I spent all of the money on that weekend. And one of the things I bought was this watercolor brush pen set. Now, I am excited about these for a couple of reasons. One, when I get new water brushes that are awesome, it is so awesome. And when I get shitty water brushes, I get really sad. If you don't know what a water brush is, it is a pen that has a reservoir of water in it that you use with like watercolor paints. So instead of having to have a cup of water and you use that to get the paints wet and to work with them, you can control the water coming out of the pen itself. It works really great for travel, which is why these two things I'm hoping will pair really well together. This package is 3 flat brush sizes. I actually have quite a few round water brush pens that I am very happy with. I use the Pentel Aquash pen. I use the Jane Davenport water brushes that you can get at Michael's. I have the Caran d'Ache ones, and I really like all 3 of those, especially the Pentel. That's my longtime favorite. So I thought I might as well try out these guys because they have the flat brush, and that would be something different than what I currently already use. Now let me give you a little bit of information on these really quick. These guys you can get on Amazon for $12.28. So the smallest one is 1/4 inch, then 7/20ths of an inch, and then 1/2 inch. Or in decimals, we have 0.25, 0.35, and 0.5. And that's how wide the brush is. Now, one of the things that I'm really excited about for these guys is that their barrel is nice and long. So I'm assuming that it's gonna hold more water. I know it's gonna hold more water than my Jane Davenport. As for my Pentel one, I think it may be comparable. Let me go grab those really quick. So as you can see here, this is the Jane Davenport one and much shorter. And then this is the Pentel one and it is also shorter. So my assumption is that this is gonna hold more water than either of those, which is, if you've watched my most recent swatch video, you'll know that sometimes I run into problems running out of water if I'm doing a bunch of shit at once. But as a caveat here, I do want to let you know that A, I am not a professional watercolorist, I just happen to like watercoloring, and B, my issues with watercolor brush pens have been very similar for the most part. There are 2 main issues I have ever run into with watercolor brush pens, and those, like water brushes, and those are the 2 things I'm going to specifically be looking out for. The first issue is the controlling of the water. Some water brush pens can be really difficult to control how much water is coming out of the pen, and now you have to relinquish a little bit of the control you might have over like a regular brush and water because it is flowing out of the pen rather than you dipping it and being able to tap some off or whatever. So you're going to relinquish a little bit of control with a water brush. However, there are some water brushes I have used before where it just like spooges everywhere, and I fucking hate that. The second issue that one can run into with water brushes is that they leak. That when you're using them, they'll leak out of wherever the situation is. And I have had massive trouble with leaking water brushes before. That's part of the reason I love these guys so much. I can control the water and they don't leak on me, both of which are the 2 things that really piss me off. And I'm mean. If you look at my water brush here, it's stained. It's all like, this one's starting to get a little frayed. I might have to replace it soon, but I love them. They make me happy. I love to travel with them. I'm going to be using this Odyssey palette and this Tropicals palette to be taking a look at these today. You take a palette like this and it's all like self-contained, and then you take a water brush and a notebook like this and you don't need to worry about water. You can watercolor anywhere and have a good time with it, which is why I love portability so much. I've done some of my favorite painting while I'm visiting my sister and just brought a couple palettes and a water brush and went to town whenever I had a few minutes. So those are the 2 things I'm gonna be looking out for mostly. I'll be looking at overall performance, but I'm really checking to see, do they leak and can I control the water? So looking at the body of this pen, they are nice and long. I wanna see, holy crap. Well, those are nice and big. Yeah. Are they marked somewhere as to what size they are, or do you just have to know? Motherfucker. These 2 lids are the same size. I just worried I just mixed them up and this one is smaller. You know, these are actually similar in size to the Jane Davenport mermaid markers. Let's take a look at the body of one of these. So this is the littlest guy right here. This is the 0.25, the 1/4 inch one. And there's no indication of the size on the bottle, which is fine. As you can see, my Jane Davenport one here is all rubbed off. Yeah. Anyway, so I wouldn't have been able to tell. You unscrew it, and then you fill it up, and you go back in, and I'm just double checking things to see how it all looks. Oh, wait, how did that? I'm not sure if I was supposed to unscrew that or not, but that kind of came loose, so that may be a spot where leakage may happen. I'm just sort of looking at these really quick before I go to fill them up to make sure that I see all of the possible avenues of shitty badness happening. I think this was supposed to stay in there. I don't know. Before I go and fill these up, let's take a second and take a look at this watercolor paper notebook. Now, I bought 2 of these at their booth. They had them for 2 for $6. If you buy them online, they're $3.99 a piece. And I've seen them at like Simon Says Stamp, I think that's what it's called, and a few other scrapbooky places on the Prima website itself for $3.99. The foil on the front is like holographic, as you can see there. Woo! This is standard sized, like for a standard traveler's notebook. My camera just went kerflooey, so if things look different, that's why. The cover is like a cardstock. The inside is watercolor paper, and it's folded up. According to the back here, there are 24 blank pages. It is cold pressed paper, which if you watched my video earlier this week, you will know that I talked a little bit about the difference in texture of basic watercolor paper. Weight is 117 pounds. I prefer 140 pound at the very least in terms of like my finished pieces and everything, but for practice, this is gonna be just fine. Let me go fill up my brushes. All right, I've got these all filled up. I'm gonna bust out the Tropicals palette, paper towel to clean them off with. We're gonna go into this pink here. Do a little drip of water. So far the dripping is nice, even with the big tip, as opposed to, that sounds gross. I'm picking up some color here. Now let's just give it like a nice little flat test. That was a lot of water to lay down in one spot. Now that I've done that, I'm gonna go back in without squeezing any water. I'm just gonna hold it at kind of a flat level and kind of pick up some color and see if I can get a little less liquid down in the first try. Nope, it looks pretty much the same. That's a nice, even kind of stroke. That was with starting a color where I had wet it first. Now I'm gonna go into a second color, and this time I'm not gonna squeeze any water in. I'm just gonna work off of the moisture that's on the water brush in the first place to see how that works. And I think I just got color on this, and I don't like that. That makes me sad. We'll go into this blue. I'm just gonna tap the blue with the water brush. Nice. Now the second time around where I did not wake the color up first, the color laid down a lot less like fluidy. There isn't as much of that like pile of liquid, which is awesome. So that's the first size. So far, no leaking. The controlling of water thus far has not been a problem. Which one is this? I gotta figure out. I wish that there was some way to figure out the sizes. I'm curious to see as we get bigger. I don't think I've ever worked with water brushes on the regular that have quite this party of tips. Yeah. So I'm just gonna go back into this pink. Oh, that's a nice line. Look at that. Ooh, I'm gonna have fun with these. Bring down plenty of color with this guy. I can also see these big guys running out of water a lot faster. Maybe that's why one of the reasons they have such a big barrel is that with this big broad brush, you're gonna run into more like running out of water, possibly. That's my thought. I'm gonna go into this red right here that was not wet at all when I started it. It's gonna suck ass because this is gonna be wet when I flip the page, but I didn't stop to think about how much room these were gonna need. And notice that this is already staining. That's okay. Your water brush is gonna stain. We're going for the big puppy. I'm gonna call this guy Gigante to go along with my Gigante eraser. Let's get you started, little Gigante. Little Gigante, does that even count? We're gonna go into the red this time, but I'm gonna drip. You know what would be really nice with this is to lay down a really nice wash. Finger's a little bit wet, but I can't tell if it's because this is leaking or because I just touched something that was wet. I don't know. I'm gonna try this blue out here without dripping any water into it. Sweet. Well, so far, they pick up color just fine and they lay it down just fine without any real problems with leaking. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create a wash on this page, and I'm actually gonna bust out the pastels because I fucking love pastels. And what better way to create a wash than with pastels? I'm gonna create a wash using these 3 colors, like these pinkish coral colors. And I'm gonna start from dark to light. One way you can create a wash is to work wet. So you put water down, start with that. And now I'm going to go into this pink. I just was able to create a really nice, like, pale background color just with this brush, this water brush. That's really cool. I'm glad I'm going to be able to do that. So that's one attempt to do something with that. Now I'm going to take the medium guy and I am going to create a background, not working wet into wet. I'm going to be working with a dry background. So I'm going to be doing one with the blues. I'm going to start with this blue. That's with the medium brush. So this is a couple of fun backgrounds that I did with these two brushes to kind of do some fun. Now on this other side, since it's not, I'm not going to turn everything over yet, I'm going to try a little bit of lettering with the skinniest one because I am not prepared to attempt lettering with the bigger ones yet. That's just a little bit intimidating for me. And since we've already given a little bit of a look-see at the pastels, we're going to go into the Odyssey. I'm going to write on top of these swatches right here. I feel like I'm not prepared. I'm just a little bit skeeved out trying to write with a flat brush. I don't think that's a problem of the brush. I think that's a problem of the Cindy. I don't usually letter with a flat brush. I usually letter with a round or a liner brush. So maybe that's why I'm feeling a little bit wacky. See if I can paint some kind of a very simple flower. So you see what I just did there? I painted a border and then I squeezed water directly out of the water brush into the border and it pulled some of the paint down. All right. So there's a little bit of a flower. I think I have enough information to give you a solid first impression of these water brushes. Without going too deep, I'm going to keep using them over the course of the next month as I test out these paints and I'll let you know my thoughts. But as I have not spent a lot of time working with flat water brushes, I am not entirely certain what I should be expecting out of them in some ways. If it was a round water brush like these guys, then yeah, because I use a shit ton of those. So consider this to be a very, very bare first impressions. My first impression of these is that they work pretty damn well. They do not leak. Thus far, I haven't seen any leaking from these guys. When it comes to controlling the water out of these, it is a little bit harder than I prefer, but I think that's because of the size of the bristles. I had more trouble controlling the water with the big guy, but I have more trouble with the smallest one than I do with even the biggest round brushes that I generally use. Again, I don't think that that's the fault of the brushes as much as I think it is the size of the actual brush itself. So that's going to take some more testing to see if I still think about that. So I'm going to have to check back in with you. As for this paper, it's starting to curl up a little bit, which happens with watercolor paper. I think my biggest issue running into using these things, it becomes really hard to close a page when it's wet. And I mean, you would say the same of like my mixed media journals or anything, except those tend to lie a little flatter than this. And on top of that, the pages are bigger. So I might do one thing and then walk away, but I can't really say as much. I think that's just for me. It's not the quality of the paper because I think this is great paper for practicing. I think it's mostly just a question of this size that I'm going to love long term. Overall, I'm excited to keep playing with these. I'm excited for their big well size and I am intrigued by their shape as a water brush as I've never thought about it that way before. Do you have any questions about water brushes or tips about water brushes you'd like to share? Leave them down in the comments. You will be seeing these more on my channel as I experiment with them, and I will be doing some demonstrations with these and other water brushes and these Prima watercolors over the course of the next few months. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time.